So, my name's Rachel Moyer, and I live in Shawneetown, Pennsylvania. I have three children. I have two girls and a boy, and Greg was the baby of the family. He really did like playing basketball. That was his favorite sport. So the night that Gregory, he had a basketball game, December of 2000. Greg was like 6'3", weighed about 210 pounds. I knew he was going to be a big boy because his father is a big boy. He was going to have his picture taken for the basketball team, and they were doing individual shots. And he told me that, that the Thursday night he's going to have his picture taken. And he came home afterwards, and I said, "How'd you do?" And he says, "Oh, Mom, I was really tough. I have a," and I'll actually show you the picture. Nothing ever embarrassed him. He was just, let me get the picture.
Oh, I see him. Wow. He does look tough.
Doesn't he look tough? Like, don't mess with me kind of thing. And my favorite picture of him,
Oh, he looks so happy there.
oh my gosh. But he was just easy going, and that's the way, he always was. But that night at the game, it was 23 miles away from the closest hospital. We didn't think about that. And then Saturday, when he got up, he was tired. And I never said to him, Julia, like I didn't say, "Oh, what is the matter with you? You don't feel well, but what is it specifically that's wrong with you?" I will never do that again with another person, because I said to him, "You want to go out to breakfast? We'll go to McDonald's." And he said, "Nah, I just want to stay home and relax before the game tonight," because it was in a $70 million school. It was took about 40 minutes, 35 and 40 minutes to get up there, and it was in the middle of nowhere. I knew he was nervous, but I didn't realize how nervous, because I think that's what sparked the whole thing, because the local news station was going to be there, so he's going to be, videotaped. And also, I was late getting him to the school bus, the team bus. He kept on saying, "Hurry up, hurry up." And I didn't hurry up that much, but he got out of my car. And every time he got out of my car, he would always say, "I love you." And I would say, "I love you." That time he didn't. And I, rolled down the window and I said, "I love you," and he just gave me that look. And he got on the bus, and he was, in 10th grade, and he was the newest one on the basketball team. And he got on the bus and said, "Don't worry, guys, I'm here." And like everybody started laughing because they couldn't believe, like, this was a dramatic thing. We had to stop the bus. Everybody's saying, "Oh my gosh, where is he?" And so that night of the game, I knew he was still mad at me. And I kept on giving me looks, looks like, "I'm trying to make this up to you." So he played 10 minutes out of the first half, and he had a couple of foul shots, and he looked good. And then he went into the locker room at halftime, and he was talking to a teammate and just collapsed off of the bench in the locker room. And one of the kids came out and got my husband, and I said, "Mr. and Mrs. Moyer, Greg needs you." So I thought, oh my gosh, with a sense of humor, he put a kid in a garbage can. He put him in the locker and closed the door. Never in a million years would I think that, well, I didn't think of sudden cardiac arrest. I didn't know anybody that had died from sudden cardiac arrest. And we went in there, but he's on the floor and no one is around him. No one is doing anything. Maybe they thought getting his parents was the only thing that they had to do, but the coaches were there. There was either some of the parents were there. And I grabbed his hand and I said, "Gregory, why aren't you breathing?" And he opened his eyes that split second, and that was it. And I didn't do CPR because I didn't know you were supposed to do CPR. No one else did either. And it took about 10 minutes for the athletic trainer from the other team to come over to the side where Greg's team was playing, and he started CPR, and he did it for probably about another 20, 25 minutes. Like it was 35 minutes. When ambulance showed up, and the ambulance did not know where to go in the parking lot. So that took a time. The first ambulance, and they did not have an AED in a basic life support ambulance. So when I wrote that on my Facebook page about that night, there was no AED, and they said, somebody wrote in and said, "How can an ambulance not have an AED?" And I said, "This was 2000." And they had basic life support, so they did not have an AED. And then it was about 10 minutes later that the second ambulance showed up, but they couldn't find where to go because I think one of the things, a basic thing you teach everybody, somebody needs to meet the ambulance so they know exactly where to go. So with Greg, I thought he was going to be okay. I don't care how long it took him to get CPR or get a shock and come back. I just thought he was going to be because he had to be. And then the ambulance went and took him to the local hospital, which took another half an hour. And they had got him back after they shocked him a couple times in the locker room. And then they took him to the hospital. They lost him a couple times in the hospital. They shocked him. But I didn't know what any of that meant. And when we got to the hospital, I saw two people that I knew had been in an ambulance with them, one of the EMTs, two of the EMTs, and they were crying. And I said, "What are they crying for? I'm sure he's going to be fine." And I didn't realize until I went in and the doctors were working on him. They let us come in right where they were working on him. They were continuing to work on him. And I think he was there probably an hour and a half, and they were going to call the code. And my husband said to the doctor that we knew, he said, "Pete, don't give up yet. You got to bring Greg back." And at that time, it had been so long since any oxygen to his brain. But like you go into like such a shock mode, and I don't remember very much because we did it. He died on a Saturday. We had a viewing, which wasn't a viewing. We had a closed casket on Monday. But one of the things that happened in the viewing that I do remember is Greg went to Catholic school, and you could wear any kind of tie you wanted, but you had to wear the uniform of a um, shirt and tie, and you could wear a sweater. So I kept on buying ties, and he would say, "I don't have any ties to wear," and he did not know how to tie a tie. So he would have my husband tie a bunch of ties, and then he would leave them in his locker room. And so when the other kids would not have ties, they would take one of Greg's ties. And I kept on saying, "Greg, what are you doing with these ties?" He never told me he was lending them to everybody. And at Greg's viewing, there were all the kids that were on his team or in his class. They wore their uniforms and they wore the tie that had belonged. I looked at the tie for like the first one, who said to me, "Oh, Mrs. Moyer, this is Greg's tie." And I said, "I was wondering." And then when there were 30 other kids that came in with his ties on that I knew I had bought because I tried to buy what I thought were very cool ties. And it was just so awesome. I thought that little, you know, guy, he was just very generous. "Ah, yeah, you can have a tie." So anyway, it's the stories, and his sisters did anything for him. And but Katie, his older sister, he went to the same school when she was a senior, and he was in 8th grade. And that you would drive by a Dairy Queen on the way home, and she would say to him, "Oh, maybe today I'll buy you ice cream." And then she would go buy their ice cream plate to go buy Dairy Queen. And he says, "Oh, maybe not today." And I think she would do it almost every single day to them. And it was so mean. But we always say that Dairy Queen story because, and she said, when he died, she says, "I would take him to Dairy Queen every single day if he wanted. If I had only known," but you don't know. And I thought, that's true. I can't change the fact that Greg is gone, but I can change the knowledge that people have about cardiac arrest. So I do this. I do it all the time, but I don't understand why it hasn't taken on more of a momentum. Unless you know somebody that's had cardiac arrest in their family, people don't take it seriously, you know, or they witness it in a church, at a school. So people, are in a community. They have been so, so great. But it's just like, I wish I could do more. I want to win the lottery, but you got to play the lottery in order to win it, you know? So then I would give AED.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we started this whole thing in the first place because we didn't know anything about this. We didn't know it was even a thing. I thought sudden cardiac arrest and heart attack and stroke were just different words for the same thing, and they're not. They're completely different, each one of them. So if I didn't know and I had a heart issue that I was diagnosed with since birth, then how do I expect somebody else to know that has never even dealt with anything heart related before? So that's why I felt ignorant, not knowing what had happened to me, not knowing that this could have happened to me, not knowing how big of a thing it was. I don't know. I was just so baffled by how little attention it gets and how many of my friends didn't know anything about it. I think that was my main drive of motivation. Like it happened to me and I almost died from it. So I don't want to make sure that anybody else in my community goes through this again.
Well, I think it's awesome. And I'm like, I think I'm a little bit more obsessed about it because I kept on thinking like if I had known, teachers are responsible for their kids. Now, if there had been a kid in my classroom, I wouldn't have been able to save them since I didn't know CPR. And I don't understand why people are not as committed as I am because they know what I've been through. And, wouldn't you rather know something and be able to do something about it than wait for somebody else to come? But I think you've recognized that more has to be done. And you are a perfect example of being a victim of cardiac arrest and say, okay, I was given a second chance and I want to do that. Like I feel everybody deserves a second chance, everybody. And even if an AED can't save everybody, it can at least let the family know there was a method used to try and save them. So everything that was done, um, that could be done, was done. And it's such an easy thing to use. You can't mess up. There's no way. I mean, it just, to me, it's like a miracle box. Oh my gosh, you said, was it you or Patty that told me about the volleyball players that have, you know, the one woman that lost her daughter and
Yes, it was whenever we were on the phone the other day. She donated, I think, about $1,000 to our GoFundMe, because she heard, because of the volleyball community, it was spread everywhere, and she heard about me. And in our GoFundMe, she wrote that her daughter was 17 years old. She was my jersey number. I was number 18. She was number 18. She passed away in 2019 and in her sleep. And later with the autopsy, they found out that it was sudden cardiac arrest, but they just, I mean, from what she wrote, I think they were trying to wake her up for breakfast the next morning and she just wasn't coming downstairs. And it wasn't until they went to go get her that they found out that she had passed away in her sleep. But that's, I mean, I think about everything that happened to me, and of course, I mean, sudden cardiac arrest is not pretty in any way, shape, or form. But if it would have only been maybe an hour after it happened, if it wouldn't have been at 10:38, if it would have been 11:38, I would have most likely been in my room alone. Nobody would have known. So I think I'm just very grateful that, I mean, I got my mom and my sister in the ambulance. It was just the best case scenario.
so the night that Greg died, we said we were going to get AEDs for AEDs at every school in this country because I really and truly thought it's going to take a year, maybe, because
Mhm.
everybody would see it. And then when people from all over the country were writing to us when we got in USA Today and when we were on Good Morning America and just a number of shows, we thought, oh, it's not going to take any time at all. But what we kept on hearing was it's too expensive at $3,400. And I thought, how much do you pay for a copier in a school if you're on the board for a school district? There are just so many things. And then uniforms cost a lot. And I say, so one year, you have a uniform that you wear for 2 or 3 years. I mean, it just the ways that you can save money so that you can have something else. And it bothers me that AEDs are not on buses. They are not on the buses that transport the teams to different locations.
What really shocked me, I know that things aren't cheap, but whenever we were talking, we saw like certain companies that didn't want to get ADs for their thousands and thousands of workers in a building because it was too expensive. But I mean, you can't really put a price on life. Like you buy, like you said, you buy your iPhone, you buy a new car and like a new office chair. But if everybody pitches in a little bit, one AD to save probably multiple lives throughout the time that it's going to be there, I don't think it's that hard. I mean, I don't think people are asking to have one AD per person, but at least one AD in a big building, I think it's pretty reasonable to ask for. And so it puts a risk for workers, it puts a risk everybody that enters a building that just might have bad luck that day. Because I think it's baffling.
I know. And living it, I can just imagine, you're saying that, if your ambulance hadn't responded as fast as it did too, that was like a miracle, but it was meant to be. I think, you have a thing that you have to do now to make it easier for other people, and getting the awareness out and being a 16-year-old that's lived through this. Like, a lot of people don't live through anything like this their entire lives. But you can say to kids too, like, seriously, you know you can die.
I think we educate people about a lot of things, but still, I don't know how sudden cardiac arrest hasn't entered that conversation in schools and buildings and just everywhere because it's so quick and it's preventable if people around you know what they're doing. If it's implemented fundamentally into schools, into people that like, okay, if you see somebody go down, do this, this, and this, like a fire drill, like you said, this wouldn't be happening. So
A lot of the school boards that I talked in front of, they've always said, it's the cost that's most important. And I said, better than a lawsuit if you don't have one, because now the standard of care in most schools is going to be an AED. It has to be there. And people are selfish too. They just don't want to learn about anything new or that they haven't learned about already. We haven't needed it so far, but I don't think anybody gets the correct number of people that die from cardiac arrest, because it can happen at any age. And when it happens to an older person, you say, oh, well, it was time. But maybe it wasn't time. There something else should have been done. I don't know. It's heartbreaking. 6 months later, the first bill in the United States was passed that put AEDs in public schools. And they were not in favor of it the first time, but it was the second time that they got the bill reintroduced, and because of Greg's death. And it was so realistic to them that maybe an AED could have made a difference. I don't know what we can do other than get more people like you that have experienced sudden cardiac arrest to say, hey, we can save. I was saved. We can save more people and give them that second chance. But I'm just so excited about saying, okay, we got to get you on Oprah. We got to get you on Ellen. Now say, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to spread the word. Legislation. There's 39 states out of 50 that have legislation that requires CPR and AED in schools. Like Texas has it. Getting people involved now with COVID, it's really hard. And doing Zoom for teaching it, I like to see hands-on, and I want to see exactly what you're doing, but you don't have to teach mouth to mouth anymore, which I think is a big help, because people didn't want to lock lips with
strange.
a yeah, anybody they don't know, especially now. And like, at least you're getting the ball moving if you're doing compressions.
Yeah, I think what really also scared me, which I did not know about, a lot of people are scared to do CPR on women because of our anatomy, which if I'm dying, I don't really care what you do, just help me. And like, I think it's so important. I just wouldn't care. I wouldn't care if it was a guy, a girl, whoever.
You know
Just
what I say in my classes? I've said from the very beginning, a our anatomies are different. I mean, I've had people saying, "There's no way I would do CPR on a woman," and I say, a nipple is a nipple is a nipple. Men have nipples, women have nipples, and I'll tell you what I say. I have nipples. However, in my underwire bra, I don't know where my nipples will be when you cut off my bra. So they may be at my armpits, they might be at my knees, but I'm going to get a tattoo that says press here, so there's no question about it. But I said you don't really have to worry about nipples. You can do compressions through a bra. And if you're uncomfortable, if it's a woman and you're a male, or even a woman on another woman, if you're in a public place, do the compressions. If they have on a hoodie, cut it off. They have on, the bra, you want to keep the bra on, go ahead. So they're going to get zapped when you do the AED with the underwire, but they'll recover from a burn. They're not going to recover if you don't do anything and you don't get CPR and AED on them.
yeah, no,
So
100%. I think that was so shocking to me. If I would have gone out to the grocery,
that's the way a lot of people feel.
yeah, I think there's the American Heart Association has done kind of like a study in my area in particular. The bystander percentage of people that will help you is about 14.3%. So if 100 people were watching me die, only about 14 of them would help me, and it's even half of them for a woman. So I would have a total of a 7-man crew, which is, I mean, out of 100, it should be 100 out of 100, really. Like, if you see somebody dying, you just help. You go and help. Woman, men.
You don't want to invade on their space, but they have to realize if you don't, they're going to die. Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. All right. So, you have any other questions?
No, I think we had a great talk. I think this is gonna be interesting.
No, I think it's going to be awesome, and I appreciate your commitment. This is great, and I certainly understand why it is so big, because you save someone else just from anything that you've done. It would be a miracle.
Yeah,
And
that's what we're striving for. But honestly, thank you to you for being so flexible with the whole time thing and just helping me out because you're already putting me in contact with like 50 other people that are gonna help me out. So, oh,
that,
my dog. I'm sorry.
no, that's what did you hear mine a little bit ago that she came in here and use her nails going into furniture? It's like crazy how. But then we'll make sure, like, we touch base, next week. If
Yeah,
anything else comes up, you just give me a text and say I have a question or whatever, and we'll go from there.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you so so much.
Oh, thank you, and good luck. And have you doing viral at school, or are you going to school? Are you still going?
I'm doing online, so right now it's all virtual.
Okay. All right. Well, then you have a good week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, you too.
Okay. Bye bye.